Welcome back, everyone, to Issues of Faith. We are talking with Dr. Bruce Morrill. He is joining us by Zoom all the way from Germany, talking about the importance of symbols in our faith. And we were talking about communion as we went to break. And I want to talk about the different kind of rules around communion in different denominations. And you were kind of getting to that. But let's say Orthodox or Catholic, they might say you have to be a member. Others might say everyone come to the table. But what about some of the differences you see in communion and denominations?
Sure, and why those exist. You just summarized it well to speak to the Orthodox Christian churches and the Roman and other Catholic Christian churches. All of those see Holy Communion, that sacrament, as what continues to bind the baptized members of the church together in charity or mutual love and service, you see? So what really is at the foundation of it is the notion of baptism, that in fact, in Roman Catholicism, I'm a Roman Catholic myself, theologian, priest. In Roman Catholicism, we hold the Holy Communion or Eucharist to be the third and final sacrament of initiation. You're initiated by baptism and chrismated with the oil of the Holy Spirit, but the final step is your first communion. And in both Orthodoxy and Catholicism, the idea is that the Holy Communion service and the sharing in it is what keeps feeding one's faith, one's baptismal faith. It literally empowers you to keep on living the Christian virtues and to move through this life toward, in these churches, we believe, toward the life that will receive after death. Yes, after earthly death. So in those churches, finally, there's one other point. I'm speaking of Orthodox churches, Roman Catholic, and other Catholic churches. In those churches, there's a final idea that communion is, remember, a union and a bonding among the members of the church, the baptized. But the Orthodox churches believe that you also have to be, therefore, in union with an Orthodox bishop. So it's not just baptism, it's also that you're in union in the church, and the Orthodox churches hold their own to be the authentic churches that reach back to the apostles, the first missionaries of Jesus, okay? Now, Roman Catholicism holds pretty much the same notion. You've got it, that, and why? What's going on with this? Well, Americans might like, whoa, this is pretty deep, but the idea is that the bishop in any diocese, in any jurisdiction, that the bishop embodies the entire church. And so you need to be in union with the bishop to be united members in communion in the diocese. And then for Roman Catholicism it is, and in union with the Bishop of Rome, okay, AKA the Pope. Okay, so Roman Catholicism, for example, recognizes the validity of baptisms in loads of other churches, Anglican, Protestant, Episcopal, Lutheran, I'll just stop there, okay? But they say, okay, these baptisms are legitimate. Water, I baptize you in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Great, you're a Christian. But you're not in union with the Bishop of Rome, so you're not fully in communion. So that's the exclusiveness there. And interestingly, Roman Catholicism allows for Orthodox Christians to receive communion in the Roman Church if they don't have access to their own priests where they live. But that's not mutual. The Orthodox Church doesn't recognize such validity of the Roman bishops. So you see all this division, and it reaches back again into the Middle Ages.
There's probably no debate in the Roman Catholic Church about changing that, right? I mean, that's kind of a, like, if you went to a Protestant church, they would say all who want, please partake, come to the table. Yeah. The Catholic Church, I think the proper thing you're supposed to do is put your arms over your chest.
That's the custom exactly that's developed. Yes, that custom developed here in the United States over the last 30 years. You could come up in the communion line when people are coming forward to feel a part of this, and you signal this thing to say, I can't receive, but I would like a blessing from you. Right. The Protestant churches, most of them coming to an open communion or open table. They say table being the altar table, yes. This has developed really over the last half century to 70 years, okay? And at first there had to be bilateral negotiations, let's say, between the Lutherans and the Anglicans, or the Calvinist Methodists with the Baptists and so forth, okay? But you've summarized it well. In those churches, the real issue, at the least, that they all agree on is baptism. But there are many churches now, Protestant and even Episcopal in cases, local congregations, that say you don't even need to be baptized. And largely what's behind that is a focus on gospel stories, those books in the New Testament describing the life and mission of this Jesus, believe the Christ, how he had table fellowship, with tax collectors, sinners, y'all come. Yeah. And so they see it as this is the Lord's table. It shouldn't be exclusive. So it's a very different view than Orthodox and Catholic with, we have this succession of bishops from the apostles and we got to all be in the house. Okay.
Very interesting. And so where do you see things going? How much have things changed? It's interesting to hear you say in the last 70 years this happened, or in the last whatever years this happened, because you feel like it's been set in stone forever. Where churches are trying to evolve, they're trying to be more modern. Sounds like the Catholic Church is set, and they certainly have their traditions and that kind of thing. Where do you see things going maybe outside the Catholic Church when it comes to communion?
Well, I think that I think it's already pretty much evolved that in most of these other Christian traditions, whether they celebrate Holy Communion or what they call the Lord's Supper every Sunday or only occasionally on Sundays, that they see it largely as, and this is the language that's developed, an open table. Largely, yeah. I think that the big issue that's going to keep evolving, and it's the really sharpest or most difficult one for Roman Catholicism, is the issue about bishops, holy orders, and the order of the ordained ministry. So I'll keep it very brief, but just to say, the bilateral, the negotiations between Roman Catholicism and the Anglican Communion or the Lutheran Communion, etc., have made great progress in agreeing on what they mean by things like this is a sacrament, what baptism is, what Eucharist or Holy Communion is. The Lutherans and Catholics in 1999 signed off on an agreement of what justification by faith means, which was like one of the big divisive things. The difficulty at the end now that's stuck is this business about recognizing each other's ordained ministers and whether you have to be in union with the Bishop of Rome, that kind of stuff.
Very interesting. We only have 2 minutes left. I could ask you a million questions, but you said this is uniquely Christian, and certainly communion and what we're talking about is Christian, but what about other faiths? Is there something even close to this act of communion when you're talking about other faiths? Yeah,
well, a quick, most immediate answer coming to mind is in Judaism. We have to be very careful when we speak about this because we don't want to give the impression that somehow the Jewish people are doing some derived or knocked off version from Christian Eucharist. That's not what I'm saying. But it is a fact that the Passover meal is something which Jews were celebrating for centuries before the life even of Christ or the birth of Christianity, yes? What we don't have are details of exactly how they did it in the time of Christ and the first Christians, so I'll avoid the lecture. But the point is, today, Jewish people will welcome the Sabbath every Friday night at their tables, right, after sunset, with a meal. And likewise, the annual meal for what we call in English the Passover, Pascha, Pesach, is kind of, I hope this isn't too glib, it's the super duper version of that annually for them. So Judaism. There are many other religions in the world. I would just say, even not the ones that are so famous, but indigenous peoples, where sharing some kind of food or even sharing something that you smoke okay?
Right.
But it's imbibing of something that everyone shares that bonds the bodies of people together.
Dr. Morrill, thank you so much for coming on. We could talk much longer, and coming all the way from Germany, so thank you.
Right.
Thanks to everyone for watching Issues of Faith. Have a great day, everybody.
Bye.